Now, in the previous module, we looked at how to check spelling as you type and how to make quick spelling corrections as you go along in your document. And that's because Word by default will automatically check the spelling, including the contextual spelling and the grammar, as you're typing along your document. Now, we'll show you in this module also how you set that up and how you make sure, or if it's bothering you, you can disable those features and configure them a little bit more. But before we do, I want to show you the other way in which you can check your spelling, and that is you can do it right before you're done with a document, and that is to go to the Review tab in your ribbon. There's a big button here under the proofing grouping here, and it is called Spelling and Grammar. So when you give that a click, that brings up the Spelling and Grammar dialog box. Now, this will probably look very familiar to those of you who use previous versions of Office and Word, but anything that has been flagged, like bad grammar there, fragment here, you can revise this. You can make a manual edit here, so set your insertion point in the Spelling and Grammar dialog box. This is, and then you can, when you're done, click on Change and close this. I won't go through the entire document here. So I made the change. I did it in the dialog box. I clicked on the change. I clicked on Close, and I've made the change in the document. Same thing. Notice that we've got a misspelled word and a contextual misspelling here of very, very helpful, except the V-A-R-Y doesn't have the same meaning as V-E-R-Y, even though they sound almost exactly similar. Now, without going too much further into detail about that, I'm going to assume that you pretty much get the idea about the spelling, the grammar correction, and the contextual spelling now, but that is a new wrinkle. What I want to show you here is where you govern all these options here, and that is, once again, to go to the Office button and click on your Word Options, bring up the Word Options dialog box. All of this behavior is governed with this proofing section here. And when you look in the proofing section, go down towards the bottom here in this section called When Correcting Spelling and Grammar in Word. This is check spelling as you type. That's why when I type a misspelled word or type a word that Word doesn't recognize in the dictionary, that it has a red squiggle underneath. Same thing with contextual spelling, mark grammar errors as you type, check grammar with spelling. All of these things go hand in hand. So in your copy of Word 2007, all those should be checked by default. So again, you may turn them on and off as you please. Now, your writing style section is also kind of worth pointing out here. And it's worth pointing out because you can check not only the grammar, but you can check grammar and style. And then there's a settings button here that brings up a separate dialog box. So in this dialog box, you can be very granular about what is flagged as you're writing. So it really depends on what kind of document you're preparing, how formal it needs to be, and so on. But negation, noun phrases, punctuation, questions, relative clauses. Style section is here. So right now I've just enabled it. It will check grammar and style. But maybe you don't want it to check the sentence length. By default, in this style section, anything that's over 60 words gets flagged as being too wordy. So if a sentence runs that long, it will be underlined if you have that style selection set to check that, and this checkbox is checked, which again it is by default. So wordiness, use of first person, unclear phrasing, sentences beginning with and, but. Hopefully, again, it's not necessarily bad writing. A lot of good stuff I've read, a lot of good sentences I've read start with but or and or hopefully. But if you are like that one, if you're writing a very formal document, maybe a document to a letter of request or something, you want to be very formal with your language, you might want to check and have those things flagged. So once again, all those options are up to you, and there's no point in going over each and every example of your grammar and style, but just rather know that if you want to configure how all of that behaves, you go into this section, this proofing section, and furthermore the when correcting spelling and grammar and word section in this Word Options dialog box.